Hey guys, Hey Listen Gaming here, and we are up in the sky. I am so excited. First of all, we've got the background music back, and in case you didn't watch the last episode or didn't catch it, it came back right in the middle of the Scaldera fight. It caught me by surprise, but it was an awesome ending to the episode. We've not had audio for a few episodes now, and it's been a little annoying. We've missed all of the sound effects and things like that. But now we have it back and it's not going anywhere. So before we start, we've got a few things to do. We're going to go collect a few collectibles, including this one. What's it going to be? What's in the box? Whoa! Money. I love money. So yeah, we're going to go get a few collectibles. I didn't want to cut these out completely because of continuity purposes. But we are going to zoom through them with the aid of the Double Song of Time. How awesome would it have been if the Double Song of Time actually just sped the game up in Majora's Mask and didn't make you pass a whole passage of time? That'd be amazing. Okay, next stop. We've got a cave to go find. And I'm hoping that this is what I think it is. So, if it's what I think it is, then I'm going to be very, very happy because it's going to be one of our first passive upgrades. The passive upgrades all sit within the item wheel, and as a result, we kind of have to make a little bit of a choice as to what we're going to have. I'm hoping this is going to be the Sea Satchel. Yeah! I remembered this one was here. So, the reason why the item wheel works really well is because it makes the game a little bit more strategic. It means that you can only pick and take a certain amount of items with you. As the game goes on, you unlock more of the item pouches. And as you unlock more of the item pouches, you can carry more items, obviously. But for now, we've got the total of 5. I'm just going to head into the market quickly, replenish my potions, because we used them all against Scaldera, and then we're going to head and see if we can get the bomb bag. Okay, so this is what I mean. My item pouch is full, or so I'm being told. And we've got 2 potions, the Sea Satchel, a shield, and a wooden shield. Now, the wooden shield I still want to keep for Octoroks. The iron shield is really good in hand-to-hand combat. I just bought the potions and we need those. And I don't really want to give up the Seed Satchel because I think that's more useful than bombs. So for the time being, I'm going to walk away from the bomb bag. I'm very sad. And the only reason really that I'm going to walk away from it is because of how often you find bombs out in the overworld. Like, there wasn't a point even throughout that entire dungeon which relied on bombs where I ran out for more than a brief snapshot of time. Whereas with the seeds, it's been a struggle, right? We had an issue, well, a couple of issues within the dungeon where we ran out of the seeds completely and it was painful. So we're now going to pop the tablet in. We're going to finish the map. And then, really excitingly, we're going to head to the Nehru. We've got a couple of other things to do first, but we are going to start the theory work a little bit earlier, purely because there's so much to go through that I'm so excited about being able to go through it all with you that I don't mind sacrificing a little bit of the gameplay out in the overworld in order to be able to do that. Kamehameha! Statue's gone full Goku, releasing light beams into the world. And there it is. The Nehru is open. I've confirmed the location of the 3rd opening. Thank you, V. Alright. So with that being said, let's talk about the Nehru. And more importantly, what is to be found inside of the Nehru. And by that, I don't mean the monsters, I don't mean the people. I mean a particular item. That item is the Timeshift Stone. Lanayru is the third area after Skyloft and Skyward Sword, and is probably my personal favourite area in the game. The desert is large, and while it takes a long time to get to the third dungeon, the Lanayru mining facility, it doesn't feel like a chore as the tasks the game has you undertake are interesting, fun, and different to much else that you'll find within the game. While yes, it does have you collect key parts once again, these are hidden inside of structures with clever puzzles, and new monsters to have to fight, and an emphasis on time travel, namely going back and forth between small areas of time from 1,000 years ago, where things are certainly different to the current landscape. It's with the Timeshift Stones that this is entirely possible. An item that when struck causes a temporal time or space anomaly to appear, in which you can still interact with items and people, and alter things within the current world based on your interactions with items inside of the temporal zones. Zelda up until this point had merely played with the idea of time travel, but in Skyward Sword, time travel now plays with you. These stones are pivotal for how you can continue your quest, not just throughout the introduction to the temple, where you must find 3 pieces of a broken key to turn a clock-like structure, which sort of acts like an entrance of sorts to the Temple of Time, but also within the Lanayru mining facility, where the Timeshift Stones act as a means of progression throughout the entirety of the dungeon. But these stones are odd. In the future, they're absolutely nowhere to be found. Even when we go forward in time, let's say to the Minish Cap, which is the next game in the timeline, nothing at all is mentioned about the Timeshift Stones. So in this episode, we're going to be taking a look, not at what the Timeshift Stones are, as this is explained to us quite well throughout the game, but what happens to them in the future. This is the dark future of the Timeshift Stones. The stone rang with a vicious clang that could only be described as shrill. The metal from your sword rang out as the surroundings suddenly began to change right before your very eyes. You had never seen anything like it. The dry desert sand that you stood upon became a lush, verdant land of plenty. Where no life had been able to grow, trees and plants now had life and were thriving, and water was found in plentiful amounts, where before was just arid ground. You wipe your eyes, thinking you're seeing something, a mirage perhaps, but suddenly more life springs to life around you. A small metallic life form buzzes around you, its hands connected to its body by nothing but pure electrical power. You're the first to see this in a millennia, but you won't be the last. After the falling of demise, a red-headed fellow follows you away from the battleground. He informs you that he won't be heading back to Skyloft, but rather will find his own path in this world. You nod at him, proud of the man he has become since being nothing more than a school-ground bully. He heads away with his friends, into the distance upon their birds of choice, but little do you know where they are heading. It takes them a while to find their way, but they finally land down in the desert. The old woman, she said we'll find what we're looking for here, he tells his compadres. The two of them nod back towards him. They walk for what seems to be hours through the dry wasteland. It just seems to go on forever, and still they continue on, taking drinks from their canteens whenever they feel the need, but not taking so much that they would run out before they reach their target. The 3 continued on, before finally finding a small clearing in amongst a group of cliffs and mountains, where the cart sat on some dilapidated tracks. Set upon the cart is a purple stone, with a symbol that resembles an eye on the centre of it. The red-headed boy looks up at it and smiles. "This is it!" he proclaims excitedly. The 2 look at him as if he had 2 heads while he assesses his findings. "What?" he snaps towards him. "She said it would be a purple stone that when struck." He stopped himself, the 2 hinging on his every word. "Let's try." He smiled as he pulled a stick from his bag. He wielded it with both hands before driving the stick onto the stone. While paper usually beats stone, wood does not, and the stick snapped cleanly in 2. "What?" His frustration showing more than ever. "How on earth are we supposed to?" It was one of his compatriots that stepped forward, producing a blue orb from what they had previously used with Groos's patented machine, the Groosinator. With a spark, the friend lit the fuse atop of the sphere and rolled it towards the purple crystal, the 3 of them turning and running for cover from the blast as the bomb exploded and engulfed the pelleted stone. What happened next, none of these men would expect. The stone would first glow and become opaque, glowing with a stronger shade of purple. The ground below it began to change. Grass growing from the floor, trees sprouted as if planted for years, and water springing from cracks in the floor. The two cohorts ran towards the water and began to lap it up, as if their eyes were deceiving them. The flame-haired male stood, his jaw agape. She said. He could not believe his eyes. We should look for these. He continued, shaking his head in disbelief. And start mining where the robots are here, but I don't see any. He couldn't finish his sentence as a small robot began to whir around his head. Whoa! He proclaimed, shocked at what he was seeing. The robot did 3 laps of his head before coming down to hover at his eye level. Bzzzt. We are mining here for precious stones. Bzzzt. It almost sang as it spoke out to the young man. Bzzzt. These stones have magical properties, or so we are told. It continued, offering answers to questions Groose had not even asked. So, we need to find more? He asked back in reply. Bzzzt. Yes, the fate of Hyrule depends on it. Hyrule? The reply came from the redhead who had never heard this place named as such before. To him, you just had Skyloft and the surface. Bzzzt. Yes, this land we live in needs these stones to live. Groose couldn't believe what he was hearing. The world would die if they didn't mine these stones. And how many would they need? What were they even for? None of this made any sense whatsoever. Still though, they stayed and worked. Groose, crawling a stretch, continued to trek through the desert, finding more stones and locations that the robots could work from, activating the dormant crystals as they did so in order to activate more robots. This went on for what felt like months, but time phased so regularly between the past and present that in fact, they hadn't realised they'd been working at it for years. Collecting the shards of Timeshift Stones that fell with every strike they took at the hands of the mechanical, yet sentient creatures that had aided them so far. Every once in a while, and they had lost complete measure of time, so they didn't know how long, someone would come. Every once in a while, they had lost complete measure of time, so didn't know how long. Someone would come. They would be fully dressed in black, with eye patterns similar to the crystals upon their clothing, and they would take the shipment of fragments from the gatherers. Where these went, though, would remain a mystery to the three, as they had not been kept in the loop as far as to what the stones were for. But Groose had an idea. It had to have something to do with that door that he had seen you pass through before you defeated Demise. That much Groose figured was clear. Little did he know just how correct he was. You see, the figures would take these stones, and though there was never a massive amount of them, as they were in short supply, they would take them back to their village. There, they would take them to their creators, who would fashion items out of the stone. Their ambitions began small, just to see what effects they could generate, but soon became as large as time travel itself. At first, they started with creating a mask. The mask was infused with very little of the anomalous stone, and it showed as the effects of the mask when donned were not substantial. In fact, when wearing the mask, the creators found no real difference to their everyday lives, apart from when it got out into the open around the village. You see, someone had decided that it was worth a shot at stealing the mask, as it must be worth value. When the thief put the mask on to hide himself away from his pursuers, likely hoping the mask would give him some form of invincibility, as there must be something special within a mask that looked like this one did, he found voices flooding his mind. It was almost too much to bear, but then soon all became clear as a dog stopped at his feet and asked him, "Hey, do you have a stick to throw?" He nearly launched the mask immediately and proceeded to run away, more than a little freaked out, so to speak, over the white, shaggy dog asking him to play fetch with him. But once the news of this got out, testing began on the mask, and sure enough, it was found that it actually wasn't used to communicate with animals as the thief thought, but could actually read the minds of the creatures. Soon, the clan began to utilise this, setting up stones all over the land that could talk to the mask. but they would only tell the time to those that approached them without the mask. Here, they could aid one of their visions of the future, a hero of whatever age they would be in, and they'd be able to forward him a message of evil arising. However, that wasn't the end of their endeavours. Next, they would go on about creating something that would further this anomalous property some more. If their science in this stone made mind-reading abilities, perhaps they should, as a method of protecting themselves, create something that would allow people to see things that were hidden. This would help in case whatever evil that would arise would choose not to show itself. They would succeed with this also. They would use more of the stones to create the handheld device, but it was imbued fully with magical property. When held close to someone's eye, they would be able to see the unseen and find things that were not there before. Once again though, this wouldn't stay in the possession of the Sheikah for long. In the dead of night once again, the laboratories were broken into. And once again, the item was stolen. This time though was a little different. It was not done out of greed but revenge. See, the thief was not just a vagabond, but a brother. His brother, however, had been tried as a thief and sentenced to imprisonment. The thought of this for the original thief was too much, however, and he had made the decision that he was no longer for this world. This decision had led the thief to his new target, the lens of truth. Finally, with it in his grasp, he slid down a long ladder and into the dead of night, a darkness that was so deep that it enveloped all light within. He took a knee and slowly, carefully clambered through a small hole into a place that he had learned to call home in amongst all of the spiders that also called it home. It would not be long before the Sheikah learned of the missing eye and would give chase to the thief in the night. Of course, they wouldn't know where to look at first, not until they spoke to the stones, who now would give a little help to the hero in the future. But up until this point, they had been gathering data, willing and ready to spew the gossip to the wearer of the Mask of Truth. They would learn that the culprit had clambered into the hole under the well, and of course gave chase. When they finally caught up to him, it would actually not be a swift death that they would offer, but rather, a Sheikah magician of sorts muttered a few words of choice. "May you be condemned forever for your theft," she started, breaking away to talk in a foreign language before continuing. "You may not leave this place. You will remain forever to only look at what you have become through your thievery," she finished. It was ominous and chilling as the scouts, the mage, and warriors left the well. However, in their searching, they never found the eye. It had been hidden so far underground by the thief to not be retrieved until a time would come where someone would come to free this man from his curse. The Sheikah, however, are not ones to learn from their mistakes. They had one more job. They must create something that could seal and unseal the gate of time at will. After all, being able to travel through such time could also mean that they would be able to access the past at will. And more importantly, it could be used as a means to seal away evil, should it be the case that they cannot defeat the impending demons. So they will go on to work on creating one last artifact out of the stone that had been harvested. It would need to be something with a double layer of protection, like having the item being used having learned a skill or something, so that the wrong people can access the door. This being used by another thief or worse would be disastrous. And so they set about ways of thinking about the perfect use for the stone. They came up with, after days of deliberation, the idea of an instrument with a song that must be played. This was a good start, but soon they realised they could protect things more with just a song also. One thing at a time though. Their instruments would need to be capable of playing multiple types of songs with multiple tunes, so as to allow the user different abilities. They would contract the legendary composers sharp and flat for the songs, and now, after weeks of pondering, they had their plan. They would forge a small woodwind instrument, where many different notes could be played. This way it could be handheld and held close to the user, and would not be too heavy to carry around with the hero. After months of work, it was finally complete. This time they had done things differently. They had opted to not infuse the Ocarina with the Timeshift Stones, but rather create it from the stones itself. It gave off a blue hue, and it would be breathtaking to look at. But at the same time, it would serve the world's greatest purpose. Next, a small group of the Sheikah, a magician, several warriors, would visit 3 provinces. These would be, of course, Eldin, Faron, and Lanayru. Within each of these areas, they would find a stone. One would be held by the Gorons, a beautiful ruby. One would be held in the forest, bestowed to a great tree, a shining emerald. And one would be held 1,000 years in the past, inside of a great lake that has since become desert, a gorgeous sapphire. These stones, they would think, would be inserted into the Ocarina, and would allow the Gate of Time to be opened when the correct song was then played. Some even thought this would allow entry into a whole new area beyond the gate, perhaps a Tower of Time. However, as time went on, a pedestal was built for them. As they grew in size due to being laden with gold around the stones, they had become treasures of the areas they had been left to, passed from generation to generation. So, the Timeshift Stones we've possibly found helped forge items within Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. None of this, of course, has actually been confirmed or denied, and is, of course, a theory. However, written into Hyrule Historia is an interesting tidbit about the Ocarina of Time, which teases that the coloration of the Ocarina and the stones is the same, and asks if actually the Ocarina could be made from Timeshift Stones. I found this quite interesting. Also, in another small note, the portion of the story that I just spoke about, where stones were due to be inserted into the Ocarina, was actually how the mechanics of the Ocarina were supposed to be. Shigeru Miyamoto has confirmed this in an interview. I found this really interesting, but then they obviously decided that the stones would need to be bigger and couldn't be carried inside of the Ocarina in that way, hence the Song of Time. However, this story may not be the end of the Timeshift Stones. There could actually be more to this story as time goes on and on. See, some of the crystals could have been left from the excavation. There is a possibility here that these were then used to create another very instrumental item within the Zelda universe. And that item is the Sheikah Slate. The Sheikah Slate first appeared in 2017's Breath of the Wild, and immediately a few things spring to mind. First of all, this is made with Sheikah technology. We're told this multiple times at the start of the game. On top of that, the slate seems to actually have time-bending anomalous properties, such as being able to stop time with status. While of course this is very loose, it's an interesting idea, and it actually could be the case as Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild, and the impending Tears of the Kingdom are set to be a trilogy of sorts, telling the story about the creation and the destruction of the Master Sword. In fact, let's talk about Tears of the Kingdom for a minute, as somehow in 8 episodes, I've managed to even avoid talking about the next installment of the Zelda series. But now I think we finally have a topic that can be linked directly to the new game coming on May 13th, 2023. During the trailers to Tears of the Kingdom, we are shown Link's arm having been taken over by some sort of magic. It looks as if the flesh on his arm is dead, but around it circles green energy, which seems to have given Link some form of powers, similar to the Sheikah Slate does in Breath of the Wild. One of these powers seems to be the ability to control time directly, or at least go back in time for a few seconds, or return an item back to a previous position. He uses this seemingly to traverse from the surface to the sky, in order for you, as the hero, to be able to access the world above, and potentially revisit Skyloft, in what I'm sure will be an absolutely amazing moment in Zelda history. The arm itself is a confusing entity, to say the least, and has confused fans of the series since seeing it in each of the trailers that has been released so far. There are several schools of thought as to what this arm could be or where it could possibly have come from, and so far we've all come to one of 3 theories. Number 1, the arm belongs to the same people that placed the seal on Ganondorf, as we can see the same arm pressing into the chest of the evil king. Number 2, the arm is the last remnant of an ancient race known as the Zonai. I'm not going to go too much into this because we could go on for years, and so many great Zelda theorists have talked about the Zonai in length. If you wish to know more, I highly recommend Nintendo Black Crisis's Who Were the Zonai video for more information. The third possibility is the arm is actually made of Sheikah technology, the same as Slate, or even belong to a Sheikah, a possible descendant of Impa perhaps, who traps the King of Evil with her sagely powers. Now, this seems like an outside choice, but it is a possibility nonetheless. And until we get the game in our hands on May next year, we won't know more about the origins of this new feature within Tears of the Kingdom. I hope that you've enjoyed the latest installment of our Let's Play theories. We're really getting into the meat and bones of the game now, and I cannot wait to get on with the next area. Next time, we're going to be aiming to get into the mining facility, and we get to solve one of the largest, coolest puzzles in the Zelda series. I seriously can't wait. So with that, I'll see you next time. Peace!